NHL regular season recap, night 124. We got 12, I think, games tonight, 10 or 12. We started real early thanks to the United States holiday today. The Ducks and Sabres kick us off, and it's kind of an entertaining one, to be honest. I didn't expect much from this game, but ended up being pretty solid. Jordan Greenway and Adam Henrique both score in the first. Things pop off in the second. That's where we get the rest of our goals. Tage Thompson, Frank Vetrano with 2, Zach Benson, and then Troy Terry with the eventual game winner. It's a 4-3 win for Anaheim over Buffalo. This is a stinging loss for the Sabres, man. They let it multiple points in this game. They had it tied in the last 5 minutes of the second and just not quite able to get it done. The Ducks, it's a nice win for them. John Gibson has a really solid game for the first time in a while. It's the first game he's been able to complete in what feels like a pretty long time. He goes 34 for 37, while UPL goes just 11 for 15. That's right, Anaheim got just 15 shots in 60 minutes of hockey. Pretty impressive stuff there to do that and still get the win, but that's exactly what happens today. 4-3 for the Ducks is the final. The Blues hosting the Leafs, and as is always the case when the Leafs have a good game, their stars came to play. Matthews with a goal and an assist, Marner with 3 assists, William Nylander with a goal, Samsonov 19 of 21 in the winning effort. No goals in the first. In the second, Nyes and Brandon Saad trade goals, and then in the third, Matthews, Nylander, Pavel Buchnevich, and Bobby McMahon. With his 8th of the year on the empty net, he's been playing very well lately. It's a 4-2 win for the Leafs. Joel Hofer equally as strong as Ilya Samsonov today. A slightly lower save percentage, 893 versus Samsonov's 905. He went 25 for 28. It's another solid game from the Leafs. They've been playing pretty well as of late, despite not having Morgan Riley in the lineup. Undefeated without him in the lineup, in fact. So don't know what the deal is there, but nonetheless, the Leafs will take it. It's another win, 4-2 over St. Louis. The Bruins hosting the Stars, and this was my most anticipated game of the day, and it did not disappoint in the slightest. In the first, Boqvist and Johnston trade goals, making it 1-1 after 1. In the second, Ryan Suter with just his second of the year, and then Brazo's first of the season in his first NHL game. In the third, Lindell and Pastrnak both trade goals as well. Their 5th and 35th, respectively. Pastos with just under 2 minutes to play to force OT. An unbelievably entertaining overtime. No goals. Tyler Seguin has 3 pretty much breakaway opportunities on Swayman. Swayman stones him on all 3. We head to a shootout that goes 9 rounds, I think, where the only goal scorers are Robertson, Marchand, and Charlie McAvoy with the eventual game winner. Both goalies trading saves left and right. It was an unbelievable game. Hopefully a lot of you guys got to tune into it, because whether you're a fan of those two teams or not, it was an absolute banger. The Bruins come away with the 2 points. 4-3 is the final. And speaking of bangers, this next game, I guess if you're a Wild fan, is a banger between Vancouver and Minnesota. Not so much a banger for me. These guys, Washington, are my first team. Those of you that know me know Vancouver is kind of my second team since I was a kid. So I watched a good chunk of this game, and we'll go through the first 2 periods of scoring. Ian Cole, JT Miller, Joel Eriksson in the first, 2-1 Vancouver after 1. Pettersson, Miller, Boldy, Miller completing the hat trick, and Matt Zuccarello all scoring. It's 5-3 Vancouver after 2. End of the intermission, I go to walk my dog. I'm like, this game isn't over, but, the Canucks have a good handle on it. Shouldn't be a big deal, right? I come back in from walking my dog a little over 6 minutes into the period, and it's 8-5 Minnesota. They score 5 goals on their first 7 shots of the period. Joel Eriksson, Kirill Kaprizov, another from Eriksson, 1 from Marco Rossi, and another from Kaprizov. 3 hat tricks in this game. Kaprizov, Eriksson, and JT Miller. Scoring's not done there. Nikita Zadorov scores to make it 8-6. Brock Besser brings the game within 1 to make it 8-7. But then Jonas Brodin and Kirill Kaprizov both score on the empty net to make it a 10-7 final. There was only a total of 51 shots in this game, 17 goals. The goaltending was atrocious. Casey DeSmith stays in the whole game, finishes with a .680 save percentage, 17 of 25. Philip Gustafsson plays the first 2 periods for Minnesota. He does not have a very good game. Marc-Andre Fleury comes in, only stops 6 of 8 shots, so even in relief, he was not very good either. Just a wild game. Minnesota fans had to be loving this one. Canucks fans, definitely not so much. Nonetheless, a big win for the Wild, a just strange loss for Vancouver. 10-7 is the final. Unsurprisingly, the rest of the games tonight were not as entertaining as that one, but the Kraken and Red Wings was not all that bad in and of itself. Mo Seider and Jared McCann trade goals in the first and the second. It's Lucas Raymond, another from Jared McCann, and then Daniel Sprong making it 3 to Detroit after 2. Jaden Schwartz would add one in the third, about 7.5 minutes in, that ends up being the goal that forces overtime, and in that overtime, it's Ben Sherratt that scores the game winner off of assists from Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond. Alex Lyon, once again, really good in this one, 38 of 41, a 9.27, while Joey Decord goes 28 for 32 for an 8.75. He played better than his stats would indicate. Both goalies, frankly, were quite good in this one, but at the end of the day, Detroit gets a much-needed 2 points. They continue to stay alive in this battle for a playoff spot in the East, while Seattle is slowly starting to see their chances fade with teams like LA, St. Louis starting to solidify their spots, whether they're wildcard spots or divisional spots. The Coyotes hosting Edmonton, and it's the NHL debut of Matt Villalta, who's been playing very well in the AHL. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. A tough team to be making your NHL debut against, though. He gives up 5 goals in this one, There is an empty netter. In the first, it's Draisaitl, Bukestad, and Janmark all scoring, making it 2-1 Edmonton after 1. Arizona would retake the lead in the second, goals from Clayton Keller and Nick Bukestad. Bukestad's second of the game, Keller's goal coming on the power play. But in the third, Evander Kane, Zach Hyman, a second from Kane, and then Warren Fogle on the empty net end up rounding out the scoring, and it's a 6-3 victory for Edmonton. A bit unsurprising against this Arizona team that's been struggling pretty badly as of late, in Edmonton, of course, been playing pretty well, not on that same tear of a pace that they were on that 16-game winning streak, of course, but still playing some pretty solid hockey, and tonight that continues despite coughing up the lead a few times. They take the victory, as they should, over an Arizona team. 6-3 is the final. The Jets visiting the Flames, and it's a bit of a wasted effort from Sean Monahan, who, after Oliver Shillington's first of the year, scores a first-period hat-trick in just over 5 minutes. Blake Coleman would score to make it 3-2 Jets after 1, and then the lead kind of evaporates. It's Kadri and Huberdeau both scoring in the second to make it 4-3 Flames in the third. Mangiapane and Kadri with his second of the game on the empty net. And just like that, it's a 6-3 win for Calgary. Again, feels bad for Sean Monahan, man, in his return to Calgary. I know he's played there before, but a game you definitely would like to see him get the win in just from an emotional standpoint. And just for the Jets, they've been kind of on and off lately. They're third in the Central as it sits today. Connor Hellebuck didn't have a great game in this one. He goes 28 for 33, while Markstrom gets back into form, 28 of 31. Just kind of a tough one for the Jets. You don't want to spit up a 3-1 first period lead, and that's exactly what happened. 6-3 for the Flames is the final. Vegas taking on San Jose, and this game goes exactly as you'd expect. Pretty low scoring, and Vegas kind of dominates it. In the first period, Michael Amadio, William Karlsson, and then I think Mike Morelli with his first NHL goal, either Matt or Mike. I'm sorry if I'm messing that up. Nonetheless, his first NHL goal on the power play, and it's 3-0 Vegas after 1. Game's pretty much over from there. Keegan Kolesar would add one more in the second to make it 4-0, and that's exactly how the game would finish up. Logan Thompson goes 29 for 29, a shutout for him. Mackenzie Blackwood, 22 for 26. He was relatively pressured despite not having a ton of shots. That kind of reflects in the 4-0 final. Not really much else to say about this game. I feel bad every time I have to talk about the Sharks in games like this because I really just don't have that much to say. They're not expected to be good. Tonight they weren't very good. 4-0 for Vegas is the final. Sorry. The Sens taking on the Bolts, and in this one, Mateo Joseph has a pretty solid game against his former team. Tim Stützle opens the scoring about halfway through the first, and then Mateo Joseph scores about 3.5 minutes later to make it 2-0 Sens after 1. Joseph would add another one about 15 minutes into the second frame to make it 3-0, where Mitchell Chaffee adds one more to make it 3-1 Bolts going into the third. Tarasenko makes it 4-1 just 4 minutes in, and then Braden Point about 30 seconds later makes it 4-2. But the Bolts are just not able to scrap together any more goals, and it ends a 4-2 game in favor of the Sens, who again have been playing pretty decently as of late. Anton Forsberg solid in this one, 23 of 25 for a .920 save percentage. Vasilevsky with his second shaky game in a row, 24 for 28 for a .857. Not overly concerned about him, probably just a little bit worn down. We're in kind of the dog days of the season leading up to the trade deadline. So Tampa's been playing well of late. They're going to have a couple bad games. Hopefully it doesn't continue to string along because they had that real bad game against Florida. This is not a good loss against a team that's frankly not that good, but hopefully they're able to turn it around in their next one. But for today, 4-2 Sens. The Hurricanes taking on the Blackhawks in our final game of the night, and this was about as stereotypical of a Blackhawks game as you could get for this year. They get the backup goalie in net for the other team, that being Spencer Martin for tonight. They do score 3 goals, that being from Nick Foligno, Connor Bedard, and Tyler Johnson. Bedard had another one that got washed out in this one. Aside from his goal, he has 2 assists, so he gets points on all 3 Blackhawks goals. but simply not enough against a very, very solid Hurricanes team. Michael Bunting opens the scoring in the first. It's a dominant second period from Carolina. Martin Necas, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Sebastian Aho all scoring to make it 4-0 before Foligno's goal. And then in the third, Burns makes it 5-1 before Bedard and Johnson score. Martinook adds an empty netter, and it's a 6-3 final. Carolina outshoots Chicago 42-17, so not a great night from Spencer Martin. Peter Mrazek doing everything he can as usual to keep the Blackhawks in the game, but just not quite enough. They get hammered as they always seem to do, and Carolina comes away with the 2 points. And that is it for NHL regular season recap. Night 124, a pretty wild night on the whole. Lots of goals, so hopefully you guys got to tune in and enjoy most of it considering the holiday, at least for us down in the States. And the nice part about this is despite the 10 games today, we still get 8 tomorrow. So we'll talk to you guys then. Have a good one.